All right, great. Last week, just as an FYI, if you did not get a chance, we will have the link in the chat thread at some point. Tammy, I don't think I shared anything with you, actually. I think we got distracted, but that's okay. We'll share with you the link. If you didn't get a chance to watch last week's masterclass, we have 3 scheduled. This is about phase 2. You do not have to have watched phase 1 to understand phase 2, but we are going to go into a little bit more detail about it. So phase 2, the messy middle. Go, Patricia.
All right, we are one big pot of vegetable soup, and all vegetables are welcome. And we would love for you to just put a word in the chat how you're feeling right now. What's a word with how you're feeling right now? No wrong answers. All vegetables welcome. Debbie is hopeful. Sonia's energized, not surprising. Verena, tired. Curious, Judy. Wanda's curious about this phase more. Excited, Rose. Confused. Contemplative, Nori. Worn. Oh, empowered, Jennifer. Yes, all of these things, right? Calm, eager. Laurie's calm. Tracy's eager. As am I. This is such an important piece here because this is the piece we like to skip over. The second phase, the phases that we go through. We just want to get it and have it and be there. Don't bother me with the details.
I want to mention that one of the most important things that we have found, you and I have found, is the practice of noticing. And that's why we do this. How often do we just stop for a second and just do a scan and do a check in and get curious? And when we can tell each other that it's okay wherever we are, guess what that is? Talking about it today. Before we get started, some of you may not know who we are. Patricia, would you like to tell a little bit about your amazingness and your...
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. Yeah, just a scan here because we do have something more written that you could go to if you really want to go further into who the heck we are. But my background is strong 12-step history, which is where I brought the spiritual, the connection part for me. And that was in the 80s. I went through the 12 in earnest when and was involved in 12-step. And I got my certification for life coaching. I've been coaching, but I got my actual certification in 2004 in empowerment life coaching with David Gershon and Gail Straub. And 2015, I joined Brightline Eating, where for the first time I made the brain connection through their work in Brightline Eating. Got something I never had before, which was the connection with the brain and how we can be taken over by the brain. Never understood that before. I'm a life coach. I coach people. I have small groups of people, and a lot of this is coming out of experience that we've had from coaching people in small groups, one-on-one, and in a slightly larger group. I'm also a coach for Everett Considine's Peaceful Eating course.
Thanks, Patricia. I always, it's so funny to me about this story because for me, I think everyone knows that I've released a lot of weight, that I come from really big numbers. I use that phrase because it really empowers me to recognize that I have fought some really big battles and I have some really beautiful scars from those battles. My angel wings, my Sharpay's eyebrows on my ass, and my waterfalls all across my tummy and my legs. I feel very grateful. And it's also hard to look in the mirror occasionally. And I can do things. So one of my major issues has always been master reframing and looking at things. As you can tell, I've decided that I don't need to be disgusted by my body. I can be empowered by my body. I have a long history of extreme allergies to the most amazing things. And I've had to make adjustments in order to stay alive. At one point, I couldn't breathe and I needed to fix things. And I knew a big piece of it was the food. So I have been working with my own system and with my own program and with my own progress for a long time. I got bright line eating injected into my brain, I was so pleased with the concept of the brain being such an important part. And the idea that for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like this was my fault when I can look at this brain reaction, the stimulus that happens because of this, I get triggered, and then this happens, and then this happens. It felt so empowering. That has really pushed me through. I study every day, and I really enjoy learning more and more about the underlying causes and the underlying reasons for why we go to food and how we can heal from that. I personally don't feel like a pickle anymore. And anybody that's in the Bright Line Eating program understands that. I do not feel like a pickle. And there's a lot to that. And I'll happily go into it if you ever want to talk to me about it. Patricia, several years ago, can you explain really briefly where you came from with this idea of the three phases of recovery?
Yeah. And I also just want to say here the importance of being in the conversation. I see some people here. Thank you very much. I'm thankful that you're looking at this again. So important to be in the conversation. I've been doing this for years and I'm still in the conversation. And because amnesia can come in so quickly back to our old neural pathways. So we're continuing the conversation. And in faith, I realized when I was asked to be on a, what do you call it, in a group, what is that called when you're on
Oh,
a panel? I was on a panel. I was on a panel to talk about my food journey. And it was a panel that always talked with people about their food journey. Excuse me. And I realized everyone has this food journey so similar, right? We can probably tick off. I was in Weight Watchers X amount of time, and I never was at a weight. I was always either losing or gaining weight my whole adult life. And on a panel, I decided I don't want to talk about my journey. Yes, I'm one of you. I want to talk about what I've learned. And so I, metaphorically speaking, flew up in my helicopter and looked down. What have I been learning? And I realized, I'm so sorry. I've got a frog here. It won't come up. And they're they're phases. Yeah, we come in, we join because we have something to do in some way with weight that's bothering us and we want to lose it. And we just really want to go on a diet is really, and we get all excited and we get motivated because we're not always motivated, but this time we joined something because we were motivated and we wanted to, and we were going to lose our weight, and we wanted to lose the weight and be there. Done. I want to be finished. Done. Finito. Here I am. No more problems. And I realized unless we go through this next phase of, because I would say that probably most, if not all of us right here have been people that were strongly in phase one until they weren't. What happened? It's the second phase of going through what's coming up and addressing things as they come up, noticing things as they come up, feeling it's okay. I can look at it, learning to go through the layers that we have to go through in phase two, which is digging deeper, and ultimately getting to phase three, which is who am I if I am not dealing with my food all the time? And that idea is scary. So we stay in the food because I don't know who I am if I'm not dealing with my food all the time. So that's how I came to, I don't know if that makes sense through all my coughing, but
Yes,
that's how I
absolutely.
realized there are phases. And I said three phases. And by the way, just it's not one and then you go to two, then you go to three, and then you're finished. We're in one until we're not in one. And then we have to look at what's in the way of being in phase two. And then we go back to one and get things straightened out again. And then we proceed further. It's mix and matching.
I
But
like
it's
to think of it too as the idea that if we only had one issue to deal with, if there was only one problem in our lives, If there was only one problem in our lives, we would have phase one, phase two, and phase three. But guess what? There's a couple things going on that might cause us to go to food. And so we might get one thing straightened out. We might get one thing much more comfortable, and we might be able to move beyond that. And then something else rears its interesting and delightful head. SWCC, the stuff we can't control. This is the complicated dance that we get to do. I don't know that it really matters one way or another if you feel like right now I'm in phase two, or right now you could certainly say that about one of the many myriad reasons we go to food. What we want to do is to be able to pause and notice, and to be able to take some time with these things. When we have an outsized emotion, it's a beautiful opportunity to look at it and go, I wonder what's making me crazy right now. So when Patricia introduced this concept, she and I dove deep into it over the last 4 years, and it has taken us quite a while to get to this place of, I think we've done some amazing work around identifying the specifics. And in my opinion, the messy middle is my favorite place. It's messy, but it's also where the magic happens. It's messy. And frankly, from an OCD woman who really hates to have her hands and feet dirty, it's a challenge, but I love it because it is where the magic can happen. If we have these things, these cornerstones available to us, noticing, can I sit here in this emotion? Can I trust it will subside at some point? Can I be kind to myself? What's going on?
To myself, just look what I just said to myself. I wouldn't say that. If I said that out loud to a friend, I would never do that. And look what I'm saying to myself, noticing.
The resonance is what we're going to talk about today, so I'll leave that one. But we want to mention that how important it is to have trusted connection. There are 21 people on this call right now. There have been a few people that have watched the first call, quite a number. Connection, understanding, and awareness, curiosity, noticing, all of those things are really important. Connection is vital in order to validate. And we'll talk about that connection in relation to resonance today. And then the final piece, of course, if you can't practice it, your neural pathways will not heal. That's why we push the concept of, what are you feeling right now? The more that you can change your neural pathways, the more that you will heal from the reasons you go to food, the reasons that get outsized, that get unbearable. And I'll explain the neurology of why we don't have any control over that. Do you want to say anything else about this, Patricia, before we go?
Just that it is a process, and it's a process. What I've noticed working with people, they want it to be over. They want to get it and have it be over. And it's okay. It's okay to continue learning and to continue being in the conversation and continue working it out. It's really important to have where you can work it out, where you're not sabotaged. And that's what we're going to go into. That's what we're going to go into today with resonance, how we need to be educated in how to talk to ourselves primarily by talking to others and accompanying them, not giving them advice. And that's what we need that education. We have to educate ourselves because we think being hard on ourselves is what's going to get us out of this. And it dives us deeper into it.
This is a topic in an area that I didn't know existed, in the sense of connection and fundamental healing. Resonance is a fundamental concept in healing and interpersonal connection. It refers to the capacity to attune to and reflect back another person's emotional state and experience it without trying to change or fix it. Guys, this is a step that we have been missing as a culture. Resonance creates a sense of being deeply understood, accepted, and accompanied in one's current emotional state. I want you to think about that sentence for a minute. That whenever I hear that, it gives me a deep sense of calm, like being wrapped in a pink blanket. Wherever I am right now in this moment, I am understood, accepted, and accompanied. It is vital. And it is something that we are just really, and I'll be explaining, and Patricia will be explaining this a little bit further, but I want you to just wrap yourself around the concept of creating a sense of being deeply understood.
because we've had an education all our lives to help and save people going in a different direction. We'll look at it.
So there's a physical, neurological reasons for the science of resonance and healing. Most PTSD or childhood PTSD that is created because we aren't accompanied. It's not because of the thing that happened to us. It's because we don't feel comfortable sharing it, or we don't get the support that we need when we do share it. And by it, literally anything. And we'll go into some examples of problems. I think you guys probably could pop a few into your head right now. But the concept is that, first of all, our brains are neuroplastic, which means that it can be changed, that we can heal, even into our hundreds. We can heal. The origins of trauma begin when we are not accompanied, not when something happens to us, but when we're not accompanied or supported or accepted or believed or sat with and allowed to feel the feelings that we have. There's tons of research out there about the reasons PTSD is formed is because something happens to you and you either don't get the community support. There's a beautiful TED talk about when all of the Vietnam vets came back, and most of them had been using heroin over in Vietnam. And there was this huge worry that there would be this huge addictive issue all these vets came home. And what they found was literally, no, that did not happen. They came home to their supportive communities, their loving families. The people that didn't come home to those things, yes, they maintained their addiction. And guess what happens? You can call it whatever you want, but when we are going to food, it is a strict and specific reason to soothe ourselves in the moment. So something happens to us, I call it SWCC. It triggers in our brain the amygdala, which is a part of our limbic system, which is the lizard portion of the brain. In other words, the original portion of the brain that does its only job is to make sure that any trigger is identified and dealt with immediately. So it shuts off our thinking brain. It shuts off our prefrontal cortex. We don't allow a planning or a pausing. We don't allow any of that in those moments. We can't have arranged for a planning session and have some project managers trying to figure out the best reaction. No. When a situation happens that reminds us of something else in our lives, our amygdala does this huge Google search very quickly and says, oops, we've got to react like this. And it instructs the insula to do that. And guess what is in our insula? Go to food. That's what's in our insula.
Shut it up, to shut it down. We think
because it would feel like we're in crisis. It feels like an external threat that it's no different in our brain at that point. Our brain thinks we're being attacked by a lion. And so our insula takes over and creates this immediate knee-jerk reaction. How many of you have had some moments or some months or some years even of abstinence where you aren't using food to solve and soothe and nurture? Your brain has to come up with different solutions to solve and nurture and soothe. It can be a white knuckling situation where you're gripping the steering wheel all the time, or you can relax and learn new ways to soothe and also recognize through noticing that you do not have to look at this as an external problem. Almost all of our issues now that are SWCC is our reaction to them. I'm not going to be able to change whether or not there's a hurricane in my city. I can get really frustrated and upset, but that's not an external issue. That's an internal reaction that I'm having. And that's something I can work on. And that's what resonance does for us. It allows us to feel the feels in the moment, and it allows us to recognize what that emotion is. That's why noticing and resonance are so important. Because if you can recognize what that emotion is in that moment, you are able to then go, oh, okay, all right, I get it. I'm reacting to this person. And now I get to go, yeah. What happens is the amygdala then realizes, wait a minute, this isn't a trigger moment. I don't need to use all my energy and shut off the prefrontal cortex going forward. I can move that trauma trigger, not the trauma, but the trigger moves to the hippocampus, which is on a timeline. Do you know that feeling you get when all of a sudden, oh my God, time stands still and you feel like you're back 30 years ago at the situation? That's our amygdala taking hold and making sure that we're safe and we're going to live through this moment. When we can start to recognize this is not an external issue. We can name the feeling. And once you name that feeling, that's what resonance is.
Can I just say before what
Absolutely. Me and this is such a great topic for me. Yes, go ahead, Patricia.
this is what it sounds like when we're triggered. Oh my God, this has happened, and and then if this happens, this has happened, and they did this, and they did that, and they're not doing this, and oh my God, when that happens, this is going to happen, and they're going to go there, and this is going to happen, that's going to fall down, and how am I going to say, and how am I? This is what noticing sounds like. Whoa, you crazy girl, calm down, take a breath. Nothing's going to be solved in this state. You need to take a breath. That's what noticing. Oh my God, I'm out of my mind. Nothing's going to be solved in this state. I don't know if anyone else has ever gotten there, but I sure have gotten there in the past. So that's what it sounds like. Oh my God. And then this, and they did this, and look at, and I can't do anything about it because they have the power to do this to me. Whoa, wait a minute. I have to notice I am crazy. I am over the edge right now. That's all.
And
I need
misinterpreting it as some sort of an external threat. When's the last time you could really control your kids and what they're doing? When's the last time you could really control the weather or your boss or anyone? No. And
and
that's the
it's
beauty of
happening to me. It's happening from the outside, and I have no say in the matter. That's what has to first be noticed. You can't go anywhere unless you notice it. Nothing. What if nothing's wrong? What do you mean nothing's wrong? This is this and that. What if nothing's wrong? Okay, I just can't handle anything in this state. I need to settle down now. Like Saturday Night Live, what's her name? Settle down now.
So I like to call this the skip step for a bunch of reasons. It was such a huge epiphany for me when I realized that I was doing the exact same thing that everyone else in my world was doing, which was not allowing people to be where they were. I wanted them to feel better. So the presence without an agenda. Think about that for a minute. If you can sit with your friend as they're working through a major grief or a major issue or even a minor one, to be fully present with someone without trying to change their state. That's the key to this. We do want to change their state, and we'll go into reasons why in a minute. But validation of the current experience is a huge piece of resonance, acknowledging and honoring where a person is emotionally right now. The creation of that safe space, offering a presence that allows for authentic expression. This is what we talk about the difference between having a community and a trusted community is everything. It's everything. Brene Brown tells a story about people have to earn the right to hear her story. And a piece of that is we need to feel safe. We grew up not feeling very safe for a lot of reasons. A lot of reasons. And a big one is because people keep telling us we shouldn't feel how we feel right now. We should be out of there. We should be pushed out. So matching the emotional rhythm of the other person is a challenge sometimes, especially if what they're experiencing is hard for you. And we'll go into that in a minute too. But just sitting with someone, you don't have to say anything. I sent out an email. I had a blog post, and on there was a picture that to me epitomizes attunement and accompaniment, is walking with my mother in the park. One of the last times, literally the last time she was able to walk in the park with me. When we can match the emotional rhythm, we don't have to understand what they're going through even. But if we can sit with them and allow them to feel all their feels, walking alongside someone in their emotional journey rather than trying to lead or push them. Really important to recognize that this is the step we're skipping. The example I've used in the past, we're going to give you some examples of the difference between resonance and advice, which is basically the next step if they want it. This step is about accompanying them and allowing people to have tangible honor in feeling how they're feeling. It doesn't have to be right for them. It doesn't have to be good for them. It doesn't have to be the right situation. They just feel this. And by accompanying them and sitting in attunement, it makes all the difference in the world. Did you want to say anything about that, Patricia?
Yeah, I do want to say it's not about never feeling out of control. What we try to do is try to make ourselves wrong for feeling it and not feel that anymore. It's not about not feeling it, but when we do feel it, what do? We have to notice it and go from there. But we have to notice that nothing's going to get through this state we're in. And so it's not about, in the past, I always tried to fix it so I wouldn't get that way. I can't not react to what I've happened to me when I was 2 years old, 3 years old. I don't even know, I can't even put my finger on what it was. I don't have to. I just know I'm reacting to something here in the present.
Marianne asked a question that's really interesting. How do you find people in your life who want to listen in this way?
Yes.
First of all, just I think I first understood resonance like literally 4 years ago. I got introduced to it. I don't even want to say I understood it, but I got introduced to it. It is conceptually rather challenging. And I would imagine every one of you is going through scenarios right now where you feel like you didn't support your friend or your family member or someone because you wanted to push them out of it. And we will talk, this goes into a little more detail literally in the next slide. But what I want to say about that, Marianne, is that it is vital to be able to trust your own reactions and know whether or not that's where noticing comes in. That's where being in tune with what's going on inside of you. People listening in this way could love you desperately and screw up the way they respond. When we first introduced resonance in the magic, it was laughable in a way. Everyone wanted to try to do it right, and everybody felt like they were doing it wrong. And there was this huge, and I just want to say, I don't do it right every time. I'm sometimes triggered and I don't realize it right away. But here's the thing about it. If you can sit with someone who has lost a loved one and not push them out of their grief and not push them out of their sadness, that's resonance. If you can sit with someone and who's struggling with how to handle their relationship with their granddaughter, they want to be told the answers, maybe, but what they really need is someone to acknowledge that they're in this painful place. They're in this struggle right now. And this slide in particular is really vital. I want you to just really understand this because this is where we can struggle with sitting and giving resonance. We don't want them to feel sad or bad or mad or in grief. Who wants their children? My daughter has an anxiety issue. Who wants her to? I don't want her to sit in all of her anxiety all the time. Oh, nobody wants that.
I'd
Yeah.
like to answer Marianne. Marianne, you're finding it now. You have to be aware of what you don't have, what you don't get when somebody's giving you advice so that you can know to look for people who know how to do it. So it's a process of becoming aware that I know these people are trying to help, but it's not helpful to just try to give me advice. Or nor is my giving people advice helpful. I need to be tuned in this other way. So you're finding it now, Marianne. Just asking the question within ourselves brings us to answers.
And this is a concept that most of our culture doesn't understand. And that's why I think the magic is such a beautiful place because it does feel safe. That's a piece of this. If you don't feel safe telling someone else about a feeling that you're having right now, there's a reason for that. And we're going to go into some really stark examples between advice giving, which is the next step often, and resonance. And what a stark difference it is to just sit in the moment. You don't have to stay in there very long. You don't have to stay, they don't have to stay very long. Once people are recognized as having valid reasons for where they are right now, believe me, things relax. Like I said, there are these healing moments. You can feel them in your brain. I can. You can feel them where they're literally, wow, I do feel this way about this situation. Wow. And then I relax. So we can't imagine them staying in those emotions at all. And that is our stuff. That is our stuff. We're afraid of feeling them ourselves. Some people are just too much in certain situations for certain people. They're pushing buttons that we have that we're afraid to feel. Guess why we eat, guys? Because we don't want to feel certain things. And now we're put up against a friend, a dear one possibly, who is making us feel this way. We're going to try our best to push them out of that. We're also afraid the feelings will never stop. That's one of the main reasons we have numbed ourselves for so long. These feelings feel overwhelming. I'll never stop crying. I'll never stop grieving. I'll never stop anger. Those are really big ones.
Nikki.
We can't imagine feeling those things either. And that's why sometimes it's really hard to be a good friend. And guess what? Every single one of these applies to our inner critic. We can't imagine that this thing is going on in my head. We're afraid we will eat over it. A big piece of this is allowing ourselves to have our feelings. That to me is a major part of recovery and the 3 phases. Allowing ourselves to have the feelings and not eat over them.
This is a process. It's a process. Slowly we get more understanding, a little bit more understanding, a little bit more understanding, and we get slowly build better process for ourselves because we've already built a process for ourselves, a process that hangs us up and doesn't work so great from our experiences that we've been taught from probably before our birth through ancestors. We're just processing, learning little by little, but we don't want to learn little by little. We want to know now. And I'm sorry, it works as a process.
Marianne, you're exactly right. Self-talk could be, no wonder I feel this has just happened. Of course I feel. Absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely. Here are some examples of this is one of my, I don't know what you want to call it, favorite examples. I want to share, let me see where I can share. All right, I'm going to share this, but I'm going to end up on a different screen. So bear with me for just a second. Okay, advice versus resonance. You want to read the first one, Patricia?
Yes, advice giving. The problem. Here's the problems that you're either having yourself or someone else is bringing up. And you're in a mastermind call and somebody brings this up. I'm overwhelmed by my workload and I'm falling behind advice giving. You should make a to-do list and prioritize your task. Maybe try in the, what is that? The such and such technique to manage your time better. Did you ever try that one? Did you ever try that? Maybe you should try that. And resonance
Wait,
sounds,
before I go, I just want you to feel your gut right now. You all know that feeling and you've done it yourself. We want to help,
I've
but it
done it
doesn't feel
so
like
much.
it. It
So
doesn't feel like it. My gut clenches and my throat aches. And frankly, sometimes I feel like punching. Okay, go ahead, Patricia. Sorry.
of course you feel overwhelmed. It sounds like there's so much on your plate. I wonder if it feels like you're drowning and you're drowning in task and there's no way to come up for air. Is that feeling that way? Is that what it feels like?
Doesn't mean that you're telling them this is a great, this is what you should feel, whatever. All you're doing is making a guess, but you're walking with them in that moment.
And giving them a chance to go, no, it doesn't feel like that. It feels more like this. It feels more, so they're getting more out.
I'm struggling with my diet and I keep binge eating. Have you tried meal prepping? You should remove all junk food from your house and stick to a strict eating schedule. At this point, it feels laughable to in my mind. And those are solutions, sure. But what you're doing is invalidating what I'm feeling in that moment. I'm struggling with that with my diet. I feel bad about what's going on in my life right now. I feel bad about this situation and I'm frustrated. Resonance is it's really hard to stick to a diet, isn't it? I can imagine how frustrating it must feel to want to eat healthily but find yourself binging. Does it feel like you're caught in a cycle you can't break free from? Maybe that tornado that touched down in Tommy's city? The difference is stark. You can always give advice, but the key is to, first of all, ask if they'd like some advice. The second is, I don't know. Okay. I've always been frustrated when I look at posts in places that are supportive around a food plan when they give you all this advice. It is very frustrating to feel the way that you feel and have this kind of advice giving. It's very frustrating.
And it's different when you're looking for advice. Help me get better about this. And I want some ways that I can do it. To try this, try that. That's appropriate. It's just when you're trying to, you just feel terrible about yourself because you're not doing something right, and you just need to let it have some space out there so it's like getting toxins out of you. So it can come in so that you can guide yourself, but you don't have any space because you're so filled with being hard on yourself about something. Are we on three?
We are.
I'm so anxious about an upcoming job interview. It's so important. I'm just so anxious about it. What if I don't get it? I don't know what I'm going to do. Advice giving. You need to practice your responses to common interview questions and research the company thoroughly. Did you research the company thoroughly? Did you look them up? Make sure to dress professionally and arrive early, and don't forget to look at them in their eyes. And resonance is job interviews can be so nerve-wracking, can't they? It's natural to feel anxious. Does it feel like a lot is riding on this opportunity, like you're under a spotlight and afraid of making a mistake?
It doesn't have to be right, guys. The
Right.
anxiety could be about coordinating timing and all the juggling, and I have to get daycare, and it could be anything. But when you open the door to asking more questions, you allow someone to literally take a deep breath, take a deep breath.
And spill more
Yeah.
because they go, no, it's not that. It's that I'm afraid of this. And I'm actually afraid I'm really going to leave my husband. You need to allow out all the stuff that's really under there. That's the best we can do to accompany somebody.
And that's the one thing that has always felt really calming for me is to know I don't need to be right. I just need to be present. I just need to be present. And it honestly doesn't last very long in my experience. People just need to be heard. And once they're heard, they relax. And there's an actual healing that's going on inside of them and inside of you. The last one we have, I don't know if it's the last one. Let's just do this one and we'll be done. I'm having relationship issues with my partner. Oof, you should sit down and have a serious talk with them. Maybe consider couples therapy if things don't improve. I understand why you would want to give people advice, but relationship struggles can be really painful. It sounds like you're going through a tough time. Does it feel like there's a growing distance between you two, or like you're not on the same page anymore? This kind of response allows for an opening. There's a lot of metaphor use in our language. There's a lot of metaphor use. And in this case, in resonance, it's really helpful if you can come up with something that reminds you of this. I used the example of having a friend whose dear friend died. I used the example of recognizing my advice was to imagine them as a mother log that is now all their nurturing and all their wisdom from all their many years is now going to forever be nurturing the next generations. And that's a beautiful concept. But I've just dismissed their entire grieving process. Did I make
And
them feel a little bit better in the moment for that image? Is that image a beautiful thing? Sure. But what I missed was the tree falling. That's the step that if we can take a breath, every one of you, I think, recognizes the differences between advice giving and resonance. Is it much more clear now? Is that a true statement? Can I get some yeses in the chat thread if this is making sense for you?
and we're talking about this in the stages of recovery because these stages need to be built upon, or we're going back to the food. And we're going back to the food. This is tying into food consumption, not food consumption, but trying to shut ourselves up with food consumption. Thank you for responding.
The interesting part about this whole process is how much you are all caring, how much you are all caring about this. I can feel it. And okay, maybe Zoom doesn't allow me to have an energetic feeling for what you're going through, but I disagree. I can feel that there's an awareness that's coming up for you that you can feel viscerally yourself. So, understanding the difference between advice and resonance is very important. And then I just want to say, please have compassion for yourself as you're starting to notice these things. To me, it's no different than the peace that I felt very early on when I realized how much better I feel when I don't have the ultra processed garbage in my system. That piece really felt powerful, overwhelming. This is the same kind of thing for me. Resonance was a really big deal for me and recognizing the difference. But I want you to understand how important it is to have compassion for yourself.
And we just want to know how to stop overeating. Please, I don't want to hear all this. It means I have work to do to learn how to do this. Awareness. I want you to tell me how to stop eating. This is all connected.
It is. It is. Resonance is a practice, just like noticing. It's active and you will feel it. You will start to feel it. You can feel the difference between when you get advice and when you get resonance. You may not know what you're feeling, but if you get something from your friend that makes you want to close down and get your punching bags out, it's possible they gave you something that you didn't want in that moment. When we can feel the resonance is, there's a ton of different ways to provide resonance, a ton of different ways. And we've given you some examples today. This is a practice that you get to elaborate on. There's a great book called Sarah Payton called Your Resonant Self and the Resonant Self Workbook. Both are really beautiful. She's got a lot of YouTube videos. There's tons of information out there from Sarah Payton. And of course, it's something that Patricia and I practice all the time. I highly recommend doing your best to relax and to notice when you're giving advice and when you're offering resonance. When you feel like you're accompanying someone, walking with them, allowing your own triggers to relax for a minute so that you can be in company with your friend, that's resonance.
And this is not the answer. It's one of the layers of the answer that we're talking about how to handle ourselves as we're going through things that disturb us.
Remember, the goal is not to be right about how they're feeling, but to show that you're trying to understand and are present with them in their experience, that you're honoring their current circumstance. The power of resonance lies in creating a safe space for authentic emotional expression and connection. It lies in the honoring and noticing where we are in the moment. I wanted to speak for just a minute on what Marianne said about mothering. I think, frankly, I grew up with the concept that, well, mom is supposed to give me advice. I'm supposed to give my children advice. That's my job. It just takes a moment before you give the advice. Say, wow, that's got to be really hard. Wow, that must have really hurt you. Or, mom, that just sounds really difficult. Just taking, that's all you need to give them. You can feel it. Their shoulders relax, their chest relaxes. You can feel the palpable change, and it's beautiful. And it just takes a moment. So I want to honor that this is possibly new to you or possibly a reminder to you, but it is a vital part of healing. We need to give ourselves resonance and we need to receive it in order for us to heal those things, those reasons, those triggers, those things that cause our amygdala to grab a hold of us. We can't stop ourselves from eating. That amygdala grab does not allow us to think or plan. It doesn't allow us to do anything. Our prefrontal cortex, which handles all of our processing, our body scanning, our emergency action plan, it's all in the prefrontal cortex. It is the sick and twisted irony, food dysfunction. The amygdala is in charge at that point, and it is going to send us and do the thing. And that's why noticing is important, and having resonance for yourself in those moments is also really important. Did you want to add anything to this, Patricia?
Yeah, I just want to say, in order to attract people here, we're saying maybe you're missing the one thing you really need to know to get your food in order. And you think it's going to be one thing that's going to get your food in order. It's going to be a process, this process that we're in. And that's what we have to say. And people don't want to hear that. Some people just, to be in the conversation of what the tools are, what the thinking is, being with people who understand it, who understand we're not perfect. I don't give resonance perfectly each time, but I'm practicing it. I'm practicing it. And in practicing it to talk to you, I am the beneficiary of learning how to talk to myself in those ways. Our work, the art of recovery, is really about educating and educating. And there's a part of us that doesn't, I'm educated enough. I've taken all these courses. I've done it. I'm spending this money on this and I'm spending this money on that. And our work is to keep on deepening our understanding. This is such an important piece of it, but it's a piece. It's a piece. And staying in the conversation is so important.
The quote here really, for me, sums up so much about what we're talking about today. Do you want to read it, Patricia?
A real conversation with a good friend can be so powerfully healing. Sometimes what you need is to be truly vulnerable and feel completely seen. Connecting with another person at such a deep level can leave you feeling re-energized and refreshed. From his book, Inward.
Brilliant.
And we can do it for ourselves. Once we can do it also for people, it has a carryover onto ourselves because we'll start noticing, look what I just said to myself. I need to say what I would say to, I need to say something that would sound like I'm in companionship with myself, not trying to shape myself up when that's what we learned.
And I do want to say, having a deep level conversation with someone where we can truly be vulnerable and feel completely seen sounds a little crazy sometimes, doesn't it? I want to honor that in our day to day lives. When do we actually stop and have these kinds of things? That's the reason for this kind of environment. That's the reason for this trusted community, so that we can recognize, okay, this is some stuff I've been working on for a while. You may not even realize it's an underlying issue of yours until you hear someone else talking about it. And that's where we can go deep. And we do. We go deep. We can, and we do. I want to remind everyone of the phase one, which was a masterclass we gave last week that is available to you in the copious emails that I've sent out. The link is there. And it basically is about getting your program in order, designing your personal pathway. Recovery is a process, but using these tools and noticing our habitual patterns around food and negative self talk, really getting that understanding internally of what is really going on here. Having sacred boundaries instead of rigid rules, recognizing what rules are not serving you anymore, and how can you set up some sacred boundaries for yourself that are really going to serve you so that you can allow yourself. Who wants to cart all their food on vacation? Who wants to stay and eat in their hotel room? Who wants to not go on vacation because they're afraid they're going to screw it up? This is about living vibrantly. And that's what phase one is about, is getting things in order enough and really looking at examining your core beliefs. And we wanted to just spend just a couple of slides on this, the messy middle, which is where the magic happens, the heart of transformation, old patterns challenged, uncomfortable, chaotic, nonlinear. Like we said, it is not a straight shot. We'd like it to be. I love this visual of what my path should be and what it is, essential for lasting change. Neurological changes, healing our neural pathways. It's not a one and done. It requires courage and self-compassion. It fosters significant growth, and we need to trust the process. Do you want to say anything about this before you read the next slide?
No, excellent job.
Thank you. You want to talk about the unconscious limiting beliefs? You were so good at the turnaround. Oh my God.
Yeah, notice thoughts, emotions, and reactions because we have to uncover. Oh, that's a thought I'm thinking that's limiting me. I just thought a think that I just thought what I was thinking, and that's not serving me at all. So I need to turn around. But I have to first notice what I said to myself. Notice thoughts, emotions, reactions, question automatic responses. Yeah, here I go. It always happens to me. Wait a minute. I don't want to. I can look at this in another way. I don't know how, but I know I need to look at this in another way. What's another way I can look at this? I'm learning to look at this in another way. Explore belief origins. Use resonance and reframing. Rewire, it will rewire the brain. It rewires the brain and creates new pathways. We don't have to keep flopping over to the old ones. We will flop over to the old ones, but we can notice that and pull out of it. It's an ongoing process, requires patience and practice, but I don't want to. I want it to be done. So how can I look at that phrase that I just said to myself in a different way? I'm learning to look at things differently, and I have people I can do it, walk with. Stay present to discomfort. Stay present to it. We want to eliminate discomfort. Stay present to discomfort and celebrate awareness and small changes. Gee, 3 months ago, I would have done that, and now I'm doing this. I couldn't even do it 3 months ago. Now I can.
Beautiful. Unconscious limiting beliefs. These are just so basic that we don't even realize they're there. But as we start opening up the peony petal, and as we start realizing that wait a minute, is this really true? First of all, understanding it's not an external threat, it's something inside of me, which can be really annoying.
It's all mine to
But they're
look
the
at.
ones pissing me off. Yeah, but you're the one getting pissed off. It's really annoying. But once we can get past it and maybe giggle about it, we can actually make some really significant changes. It's stark when they can't push a button. Guess what? Those buttons are yours to choose whether or not you want to continue having them. That's your choice. Oh, I want to take a deep breath now.
Before we go, obviously we're promoting this because this is what we do in our course. I don't want to pretend we're not advocating a course that we go through over this long period of time, over a longer period of time. So we want you to look into all that it takes. And so before we go into that, are we going to go into that? Or are
Yep,
we?
it's the next slide.
Okay. So we want to see where you are right now. Vegetable soup moment. What are you feeling in this moment? What's a word that you can feel in this moment? All words are okay. All vegetables welcome. Still time.
In
Yes.
it's late for you and you've had a long day to love it.
Friends coming from Germany.
Yes.
Practice. Grateful indeed. Thanks, Rose. Relief. Helpful, Marianne. Thank you. Calm.
I'm really grateful that I can take a deep breath right now because I this is frankly my most favorite topic, and anybody that knows me knows I'm a little exuberant and a little passionate. Is probably a good word to describe me, I suppose. And this particular topic was so revolutionary for me. I still remember the first time I realized, oh my God, I'm skipping a step. Wow. So the Art of Recovery course. We've offered this
Hopefully
one
you got
before.
something out of this. If you do nothing else, that you're more aware that you
Yes, we
sent that
definitely
out
wanted
and
to.
got something out of it.
Absolutely. We definitely wanted to gift you with something for spending an hour with us today. The Art of Recovery course is something that we offered this last January, and we're offering it again in the form of 12 modules that are hybrid watch parties. In other words, we're going to be replaying the course that we had with our additional wisdom and knowledge and awareness, and we're all going to be watching it together. There's this thing called Evergreen that a lot of courses do. And I don't know, I've never heard of this before, but Evergreen courses we buy regularly and they sit in our hard drive. Our intent is to have a robust, over the next several months. Frankly, the sugar season is starting for the United States anyway. And so we want to start this. It'll be starting on August 24th, where there will be 12 hybrid watch parties at this same exact time. And we will also have 2 coaching calls. You will get 2 private one-on-one 20-minute sessions with either coach, your choice. Neither one of us we both have thick skins, and it's up to you who you feel more comfortable with. It's designed to be action-oriented, active learning, neurological pathway forming, both science and spiritual support. And you'll have access to a complete library of masterclasses, as well as the course content online. So you don't have to look through your emails for things. And it starts August 24th, and it will be 200 and for the full 3+ months. I think it's 14 weeks, something like that.
I think it's 16. But anyway, it's on Verina's slide. Do you have that slide ready? Or we're gonna wait till next week for that?
No, I wanted to color code it a little differently, but no. And Farina, by the way, is brilliant. If you ever need anybody to help you with a course, anything that can help you organize. Patricia and I are incredibly creative and incredibly good at what we do. But as far as putting together this course, in my opinion, the reason it's so brilliant is because of Verena as the third leg in our stool. So
She makes it a picture. So here we're talking. Verena makes the picture. We'll show you next week.
yes. Are there any questions? Does anyone have any issues? Any questions they have? Anything of interest to them right now? Anything that you'd like us to go into depth on? I know we've talked for a while here. I'm going to put the link to the Art of Recovery page here for you if you want to look into it more in detail. The dates, the information. There's quite a bit. There's a ton of testimonials about the impact, and there are quite a number of people retaking this. It's been that powerful. I would say 65% of the people that took the course initially are taking it again. Yeah.
So important to stay in the conversation. We think we take a course and then we don't need to take a course again, but it's hearing it again, staying in it, being in it, living in it. And we get new things all the time. I know I'm getting new things all the time.
I really want to thank everyone for being here today. I appreciate your input, your questions. I'm grateful. And I'm especially grateful for my partner in crime. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you. Thank everyone for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tommy, for your co-hosting. Much appreciated. Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Happy Saturday. Go find the magic.